In addition to international and domestic legislation, we may need to follow standards, best practice models, codes of practice, and codes of ethics. These may be mandatory or voluntary. In this video, we will look at industry codes of practice and codes of ethics. Industry codes of practice are enforceable rules and measures that regulate industry conduct, its workers, and their relationship with consumers. Above all, they ensure good industry practice by setting guidelines for fair dealing between you and your customers. Industry codes of practice may be developed and sponsored by industry groups or developed in partnership with government agencies and regulatory bodies. Although industry codes are generally voluntary, there may be cases where a statutory body mandates that organizations must follow a code of practice. For example, the Australian Banking Code of Practice governs banks and their dealings with individual or small business customers, including prospective customers and their guarantors. Consequently, the code sets standards for good banking practice that promotes good faith and transparency between the banks and customers. Hence, it ensures consumer protection and regulates financial services. Although the code is not legislation, banks that adopt it are contractually bound by their obligations. For example, if a bank breached the code compliance monitoring committee will investigate the alleged breach, or the customer can refer to the bank's external dispute resolution scheme. Mandatory industry codes of practice provide practical guidance and advice on how to achieve the standard required by legislation. Codes of practice are developed through consultation with representatives from industry, workers and employers, special interest groups and government agencies. A code of practice is not law, but it should be followed unless there is an alternative course of action that achieves the same or better standards. For example, the Australian e-marketing code of practice under Section 117 of the Spam Act 2003 is mandatory and enforceable by the Australian Communications and Media Authority. The Australian e-marketing code of practice was developed to establish comprehensive industry rules and guidelines for the sending of commercial electronic messages within Australia Link in compliance with the Spam Act. Voluntary industry codes are not enforced under any act or regulation. In contrast to mandatory standards, voluntary codes exist mainly to encourage consumer confidence within certain industries. They also allow industries to self-regulate and promote ethical practices. Voluntary industry codes may address a range of issues that are not safety-related. For example, voluntary codes include alcohol manufacturers' elective adoption of stricter rules to keep promotional messages away from young people after public attention was drawn to the problem of binge drinking by youth. A code of ethics is a guide of principles designed to help professionals conduct business honestly and with integrity. A code of ethics document may outline the mission and values of the business or organization, how professionals are supposed to approach problems, the ethical principles based on the organization's core values, and the standards to which the professional is held. For example, a code outlining all the ways the business should act with honesty and integrity in its day-to-day operations, from how its employees behave and interact with clients, to the types of individuals it does business with, including suppliers and advertising agencies. Both businesses and trade organizations typically have some sort of code of ethics that their employees or members are supposed to follow. Breaking the code of ethics can result in termination or dismissal from the organization. A code of ethics is important because it clearly lays out the rules for behavior and provides the groundwork for a preemptive warning. A code of ethics is similar to a code of conduct, as both are sets of professional standards to guide the behavior of an organization's members. For example, a code of ethics is used to ensure that members have sound and unclouded judgment. Examples include the legal codes that prohibit lawyers from accepting cases where they have a conflict of interest, or those that prevent brokers from trading against their clients. Whereas a code of conduct guides the specific actions of a company's employees. It may contain certain norms of professional responsibility, such as punctuality and accuracy. Most companies have an employee code of conduct, both to maintain professionalism and to prevent friction among their employees.